What if the only thing holding you back wasn't your ability, but your awareness? Right now you might feel stuck, like you're capable of more, but can't quite break through. You look around and wonder how others seem to move faster, think sharper, make progress while you're still figuring things out. You question yourself. Maybe you've tried working harder. Maybe you've told yourself it's just bad timing. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. Because you know there's more inside you. More clarity, more focus, more fire. You just haven't fully unlocked it yet. Most people live their entire lives in reaction mode. They wake up, scroll, rush, survive. Day after day, they repeat patterns they never chose. They mistake movement for growth. They confuse being busy with being intentional. And slowly, without noticing, they settle. Not because they want to, but because they never learned how to see beyond the noise. That's the trap, being so deep in the fog that you don't even know you're in it. And that's where 90% of people stay. But not you. Not anymore. Because there's a shift happening in you right now. You're not watching this by accident. Something in you is waking up. Something tired of drifting. Tired of the same results. Tired of settling for less than what you're meant for. You've had glimpses of your potential. Moments of clarity, confidence, and strength. You felt what it's like to be in alignment. Now it's time to make that your default. Not a random spark, but a constant fire. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to wait for perfect timing. What you need is a new lens. A way of seeing the world that cuts through the chaos and gives you leverage. Mental tools that most people will never develop. Because here's the truth, success isn't about being the smartest in the room. It's about seeing clearly when others don't. It's about choosing your path instead of following the one handed to you. Over the next few minutes you'll learn how to think differently, how to protect your energy, how to outsmart the noise, reclaim your focus, and move with purpose. This isn't about hype, it's about clarity. Because when you understand how most people operate, and how easy it is to rise above that noise, everything changes. You stop competing with others. You stop doubting yourself. You start living on a different level. The reward, freedom, control, a sense of power that doesn't come from luck or approval, but from knowing you've taken full ownership of your mind. And once you do that, everything becomes possible. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer hope, you create. You no longer chase, you attract. That's the edge you're about to unlock. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So stay with this. Don't blink. Because the next few minutes will give you something most people never get. A blueprint for thinking clearly in a confused world. This is your moment to rise. Not someday. Now. Most people are trapped inside a mental cage they don't even realize exists. They walk through life repeating patterns, not because they choose to, but because they never learned how to question them. Their beliefs, their decisions, even their identity, are shaped by habits inherited from the world around them. They think they're thinking, but they're just reacting. They think they're free, but they're bound by invisible scripts they never wrote. This is the silent reason why so many people feel stuck. They're not lacking intelligence, they're lacking mental tools. What separates the few who rise is not that they were born with more, it's that they learned to see differently. They trained themselves to think on purpose. They developed the ability to pause before reacting, to question their thoughts, to ask why, again and again, until they reached something real. They didn't accept things at face value. They studied patterns, broke them apart, and built something stronger. That's not luck. That's mental mastery, and anyone willing to learn it can have it, including you. There's a kind of thinking that gives you leverage in any situation. It's not about knowing everything, it's about understanding how to frame everything. When most people hit obstacles, they spiral. They take it personally. They assume failure means stop. But those who think at a higher level don't stop at the surface. They ask better questions. They use setbacks as signals. They don't just see what's happening, they see why it's happening. That's what gives them power. Not more answers, better thinking. This is what mental models give you, frameworks for thinking that cut through confusion. They act like lenses, allowing you to see clearly where others stay lost. They help you spot patterns faster, make decisions with less stress, and avoid the traps that catch everyone else. When you start to think this way, you don't get overwhelmed by noise. You don't chase distractions. You focus on what moves the needle. You move with clarity, not chaos. And suddenly, life stops feeling random. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what does this make possible? You stop feeling behind. You realize most people aren't ahead. They're just busy being busy. You stop comparing. You focus. You build. You rise. Not because you're trying to outdo anyone else, but because you've chosen to think differently, to play a smarter game. This shift doesn't require more effort. It requires more awareness. It's not about doing more. It's about thinking better. Once you see how powerful your mind truly is, everything changes. The chaos quiets, the doubts fade, the pressure lifts, because now, you're not just reacting, you're leading. You're shaping your reality with intention, not drifting through it by default. And when you start to think this way, you don't just outsmart others, you outgrow the version of you that settled. That's the real victory. That's the silent power. Not louder, not faster, just sharper. And from this moment forward, you're not going back. When you finally learn to think clearly, the next battle is protecting that clarity, and nothing threatens it more than distraction. The world is louder than ever. Constant pings, non-stop noise, endless information. Every second, something is trying to steal your attention. Not because it's valuable, but because distraction is profitable for someone else. And if you don't fight for your focus, it gets taken from you. Quietly, consistently, until your mind isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the algorithm, to the drama, to the things that don't move you forward but pull you deeper into reaction, fear, and confusion. Focus is the modern-day superpower. It's not a luxury, it's survival. Your ability to think deeply, to stay locked into what matters, to shut out the noise and tune into what's real. That's what builds results. That's what creates momentum. Not raw talent, not more hours, but deep, intentional focus. And here's the truth. Most people never experience it. They live in fragments, a thought here, a scroll there. Constantly switching, constantly consuming, but never truly connecting. Their energy leaks out through 1,000 tiny holes, and they wonder why they feel tired without doing anything real. But there's another way, a sharper way. You reclaim your focus by becoming ruthless with your attention. You don't wait for quiet, you create it. You don't hope for clarity, you earn it. You guard your time like it's your life, because it is. You say no more often. You remove the unimportant without apology. You build boundaries that protect your peace, because what you focus on, you feed, and what you feed grows. This is where the game changes. When you stop letting the outside world control your inner world. When you decide that presence is power. That being here, fully here, is a competitive advantage. You start doing deeper work. You start hearing your own thoughts again. You make decisions not out of panic, but from a place of calm strength. That calm becomes your edge. While others react, you remain grounded. While others chase noise, you create signal. While others get pulled in 100 directions, you move in one. Forward. Focus isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's a skill you build, not something you're born with. And every time you choose it, you get stronger. Every time you silence the distractions, you get clearer. Every time you resist the pull of the trivial, you move closer to the essential. That's what makes you unstoppable. Not the ability to do everything, but the wisdom to do the right things. If you can control your focus, you can control your future. Because when your mind is clear, your path becomes visible. You see opportunities others miss. You make decisions faster. You waste less. You build more. Not from force, but from alignment. And once you experience that kind of focus, real, undiluted, uninterrupted, you'll never settle for scattered again. You'll feel the difference, and so will everyone around you. Once your focus sharpens, you start to notice something powerful. Most things don't matter. You've been taught to treat everything as urgent, but that's a trap. The truth is, only a few actions drive most of your progress. The rest, distraction in disguise. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you gain control. Because it's not about doing more. It's about doing less, but doing it with intensity, precision, and purpose. That's how high performers move faster with less stress. They don't chase everything. They double down on what truly matters and let go of the noise. You can't outrun chaos by speeding up. You overcome it by simplifying, by zooming in on the few moves that actually change your results. And this takes courage. Because the world rewards the busy. It claps for exhaustion. It celebrates hustle, even when that hustle leads nowhere. But you weren't built to burn out. You were built to build wisely. And that means asking yourself every single day what's essential, and what's just distraction wearing a mask. There's a rule the elite live by, whether they know it by name or not. A small percentage of what you do creates nearly all of your outcomes. When you find those few things and go all in, everything changes. Progress gets faster, stress gets lower, and life feels lighter. Because you're no longer drowning in tasks that don't move the needle. You're choosing with clarity, acting with power, and most importantly, saying no with confidence. This is how you outsmart the system. You stop playing the game of more tasks, more goals, more pressure, and you start playing the game of impact. You ask better questions. What's working? What's wasting my time? What can I eliminate, automate, or delegate? You don't do everything. You do what matters. And you do it well. Because depth beats speed. Clarity beats chaos. Precision beats pressure. You'll feel resistance at first, because we're conditioned to think more equals better. But that belief is a lie. Complexity kills clarity. simplicity sharpens it. When your mind gets used to focusing only on the few things that matter most, your confidence skyrockets. Your decisions get cleaner, your time becomes sacred, and your progress compounds, quietly at first, then suddenly. This is the turning point. You no longer ask how much you can get done. You ask what's worth doing at all. And in that shift you rise above the noise. You become unavailable for the distractions that trap everyone else. You create space to think, to build, to lead. And while the world is running in circles, you're walking a straight path forward, one clear step at a time. This is what puts you ahead of 90% of people. Not speed, not luck, just clarity. Ruthless clarity, and the willingness to protect it, no matter what. Because when you master the vital few, you no longer chase progress. You create it, on your terms. Clarity creates momentum, but conviction sustains it. It's not enough to know what matters. You have to believe in it deeply enough to stay consistent when it gets hard. And it will get hard. The world will keep throwing noise at you. Distractions won't stop just because you've chosen a different path. But that's exactly why most people fall back into the spiral. They don't lack goals, they lack inner anchoring. They start strong, but when things don't move fast enough, they question everything. They let the outside dictate their direction. And just like that, they're back to reacting instead of leading. But that's not you anymore. You're no longer led by emotion. You're led by principle. You've chosen to move with purpose, not pressure. And with that choice comes power. The power to hold the line when the world around you wavers. The power to keep showing up. Not because it feels good in the moment, but because you're committed to a bigger vision. The most successful minds aren't the ones who never doubt. They're the ones who act anyway. Who trust their process. Who stick to their system even when the results haven't fully arrived. This is where internal discipline separates the few from the many. Anyone can act when it's easy. Anyone can be focused when they're motivated. But it takes strength to stay grounded when motivation fades. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. It's built through repetition, through showing up when no one's watching, through doing the small, boring things that compound into something great. You don't need more hype. You need more follow-through, more honesty with yourself, more commitment to the invisible work that most will skip. And here's the truth that changes everything. Action rewires belief. You don't wait to feel confident before moving. You move, and the confidence builds. You don't wait to be perfect. You start, refine, adjust, and grow. Progress is always messy, but it's real. And every time you choose consistency over comfort, you become a little more unstoppable, a little more certain, a little more dangerous, in the best way. There's something powerful about knowing you can trust yourself. That you say what you mean and you mean what you say. That when you set a direction, you don't need to prove it to anyone. You just do the work, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. That's what gives you your edge. Not flash, not noise, but reliability. The kind that's rare, the kind that compounds, the kind that moves mountains over time. When you operate from this place, you stop looking for shortcuts. You realize the real secret is patience with action, focus with belief, simplicity with fire. That's how you rise, not in a burst, but in a wave that never breaks. And the more you live this way, the less you need permission, the less you wait, the less you wish, because now, you're not chasing strength. You've become it. Real power begins the moment you stop waiting to feel ready, because readiness is a myth. Clarity doesn't always come before action. Most of the time it follows it. You move first. You decide even in uncertainty. You build momentum by doing the uncomfortable thing over and over until it becomes who you are. That's how transformation happens. Not by waiting for confidence, but by proving to yourself that fear has no final say. And once you realize that, hesitation dies. You stop playing small. You stop needing the perfect plan. You start building from where you are with what you have right now. This is where most people hesitate. They think they need more time, more knowledge, more permission. But what they really need is courage. The courage to move before they feel completely certain. The courage to look imperfect and still go forward. The courage to stop overthinking and start doing. Because motion breaks fear. Action quiets doubt. And every time you take the first step, the path starts to unfold. Not because the fear disappears, but because you outgrow it. You'll never control everything, but you can control what you do next. And that next move, that single intentional action, can shift everything. Even if it's small, especially if it's small. Because small steps, repeated with discipline, become unstoppable forces. They create habits. They build character. They shape identity. The person you want to become isn't found in a future moment. It's built through daily decisions. And if you wait for the perfect moment, you'll miss the only moment that matters. This one. You don't need more certainty. You need more boldness. The kind that doesn't scream, but moves with quiet fire. the kind that acts in the face of doubt, the kind that understands this truth. Discomfort is not a warning. It's a sign of growth. It means you're stretching. It means you're entering a space where average minds don't go. And the more time you spend there, the stronger you become. Not just on the outside, but deep within, in the place where real confidence is built. This is the edge that sets you apart. Most people hesitate, then retreat. You feel the same fear, but move anyway. You use fear as fuel. You welcome resistance, because you know it's the weight that makes you stronger. You don't need perfect timing. You are the timing. You create the spark. You take the risk. You initiate the move. And each time you do, you separate yourself from the masses who stay stuck waiting for signs, waiting for motivation, waiting for everything but themselves. But you're not here to wait. You're here to rise, to become, to lead, starting now, starting raw, starting real. Because the life you want isn't waiting down the line. It's built one brave move at a time, and you're ready. You're already more capable than you think. You just needed to remember. And now you do. Most people never break through because they keep seeking comfort in familiar patterns. They want change, but they don't want disruption. They want success, but resist the sacrifice. And that quiet contradiction is what holds them hostage. You cannot create a new life with an old mindset. You can't evolve while clinging to the very habits designed to keep you small. Growth is not just about learning, it's about unlearning. It's about letting go of what no longer serves you, even if it once felt safe. Even if it's all you've known. Real transformation begins when you stop defending your limits. Your mind will try to protect you. It will whisper doubts to keep you in your comfort zone. Not because it wants to sabotage you, but because it fears the unknown. But that fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal that you're crossing into territory where your old self can't follow. And that's exactly where you're meant to be. The discomfort you feel isn't weakness. It's evidence that you're stepping into growth, that you're disrupting the patterns that kept you invisible, that you're shedding layers of who you were to make room for who you're becoming. Everything in your life is a reflection of what you've tolerated, the standards you've accepted, the thoughts you've repeated. If you want to rise, you have to raise those standards, not just in what you do, but in what you believe. You have to stop negotiating with mediocrity. Stop compromising with excuses. Start demanding more from yourself, not in a way that breaks you, but in a way that builds you. Growth isn't punishment, it's permission. Permission to step beyond the version of yourself that settles. And every time you choose that path, you reclaim more of your power. You are not here to stay the same. You are here to expand, to challenge, to level up. And that requires truth, radical, honest truth, the kind that stings, the kind that frees. You cannot conquer what you're too afraid to confront. You have to look your habits in the eye, your distractions, your stories, and ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, you already know what needs to change. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it, because every time you let go of what holds you back, you rise lighter, faster, and more focused. This is the moment you decide. No more shrinking, no more playing it safe, no more dimming your power to make others comfortable or to protect your fear. You're not here to blend in, you're here to break through. You don't owe your past anything. You owe your future everything. And the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you want is the standard you set right now. Raise it, live it, and watch the world respond to the new version of you who no longer settles. The moment you raise your standards, the world starts to push back. Not because you're wrong, but because you've become different. And different makes people uncomfortable. They'll question your pace, your silence, your hunger. They'll ask why you've changed, why you're not available like before, why you don't fit the mold they've placed you in. But that resistance isn't a sign to stop. It's confirmation that you're on the edge of your breakthrough. Growth is disruptive. It separates you from old patterns, from small thinking, from environments that can no longer hold your potential. And that separation can feel lonely, but it's sacred. It's where the real work begins. You weren't born to be agreeable. You weren't made to shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. You were built to rise, to question, to break free. And that requires one thing above all, integrity with yourself. You must live in alignment with your vision, not other people's expectations. That's how you build real confidence, not from praise, but from keeping promises to yourself. From waking up and choosing progress even when no one is watching. From being the kind of person who doesn't need external validation to stay committed. Because when you become loyal to your future, your past loses its grip. It's easy to talk about change. It's hard to live it when it costs you comfort, approval, and familiarity. But the cost of staying the same is higher. It steals your energy. It eats away at your self-respect. It keeps you in loops of quiet frustration, wondering why nothing's shifting while you keep choosing what's safe. Playing small doesn't protect you. it slowly erodes you. And every time you avoid the hard conversation, delay the bold decision, or downplay your truth, you reinforce the lie that you're not ready. But you are. You've always been. You just needed a moment to remember your strength. That strength isn't loud. It's steady. It shows up in the way you carry yourself, the way you choose discipline over distraction, the way you refuse to be owned by your past. Every small act of courage compounds. Every time you say no to what drains you and yes to what elevates you, you step further into the person you were meant to be. You don't need to scream about it. You don't need to prove anything. Your results will speak, your peace will grow, and your energy will become undeniable. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not too late. You're just shedding the version of yourself that thought playing small was survival. But survival isn't your goal anymore. Expansion is, impact is, fulfillment is, and you can't get there by staying where it's comfortable. You get there by deciding, every single day, that you are done negotiating with limitation. You're not here to blend in, you're here to build, and everything you need is already within you, waiting for your permission to fully show up. You don't rise by chance, you rise by choice, by choosing what most avoid, by showing up when it's inconvenient, by refusing to wait for ideal conditions and deciding that growth begins now, exactly where you are. Most people are stuck not because they lack talent, but because they lack clarity. They drift through life distracted, pulled by whatever feels urgent, instead of choosing what's truly important. And the longer you stay in that fog, the more you forget your own power. But the second you get intentional, everything changes. Not just what you do, but how you see yourself. Because clarity sharpens purpose, purpose fuels energy, and energy aligned with action becomes unstoppable momentum. You were never meant to live reactive. You were born to lead your own mind, your time, your emotions, and it starts by taking full responsibility for what you allow into your life. Every thought, every habit, every pattern you repeat, it's either building your future or breaking it down. There's no neutral, there's no standing still. You're either rising or retreating, and the most powerful shift you can make is this. Stop hoping life will change and start choosing to become the one who changes it. No more outsourcing your power, no more waiting to be saved. You save yourself by aligning your daily actions with your highest standard. You won't always feel motivated, but that's the point. Discipline kicks in when motivation dies, and discipline isn't a punishment, it's a declaration. A declaration that your future matters more than your mood, that your goals aren't optional, that you're not here to dabble, to wish, to try. You're here to execute, to rise above your excuses, to hold yourself to a standard that scares the average and awakens the exceptional. This is the mindset that separates the top 1%. Not more luck, but more ownership. Not more time, but better use of it. Not fewer fears, but more courage to move despite them. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be consistent. When you feel tired, show up. When you feel doubt, move anyway. When it gets quiet, trust the work. That's how results are built. Quietly, repeatedly, without applause. While others scroll, you sharpen. While they chase comfort, you chase mastery. And the compound effect of those choices creates a future so solid that even setbacks can't shake it. Because you didn't build it on hype, you built it on habits. And now, your habits carry the weight of your vision. This is where the shift happens. When you stop identifying with your past and start identifying with your potential. When you stop letting fear shape your ceiling and start letting belief raise your floor. You're not here to repeat history. You're here to create it. And with every step forward, you prove to yourself that the life you want isn't some distant dream. It's a daily decision, one you're now strong enough to make, over and over, until it's yours. There comes a point where you must decide what matters more, your comfort or your calling, because they don't coexist. One keeps you safe, the other sets you free. And freedom isn't found in the absence of fear, it's found in the choice to no longer obey it. The truth is, the world doesn't give you what you deserve, it gives you what you demand through your actions, your discipline, your standards. When you choose growth over ease, when you lean into the tension instead of running from it, you begin to rise above the noise that keeps most people trapped in cycles of distraction and regret. Every moment you delay your potential, you reinforce the belief that it can wait. But it can't. Not if you're serious about becoming the kind of person who finishes what they start. The kind of person who doesn't flinch at resistance but leans into it with purpose. That edge, that hunger, is what separates those who wish from those who execute. Most people talk about what they want. Few are willing to become who it requires. But that's where real change lives, not in the desire but in the decision. The decision to no longer be owned by old habits. The decision to cut ties with excuses. The decision to wake up every day and do what others won't, so you can live how others can't. You're not supposed to feel ready. You're supposed to feel pulled. Pulled by the vision of something bigger than your circumstances. Pulled by the fire inside you that refuses to die quietly. That voice may be faint, but it's real, and the more you honor it, the louder it gets. You don't silence self-doubt by waiting for it to disappear. You silence it by proving it wrong through repeated action, by stacking small wins until belief becomes your new baseline, until quitting no longer feels like an option, because the identity you've built doesn't align with giving up. This is how you outsmart the masses, not by pretending to be perfect, but by being relentless, by deciding that focus is your power, not a temporary state, by realizing that most people never win because they chase everything but master nothing. Your advantage is clarity, clarity in your purpose, clarity in your actions, clarity in what you're no longer available for. And when you operate with that kind of direction, distraction loses its grip on you. You no longer chase what's easy, you commit to what's essential. You no longer react to pressure, you rise through it. Your edge is not talent, it's consistency. It's how you show up when it's inconvenient. It's the quiet discipline behind closed doors. It's doing the hard thing long enough to make it feel natural. And that's the real difference. The reason you'll rise while others stay the same. Because you no longer hope for change. You are the change. And every action from this moment forward is a signal to the world you are no longer available for anything less than excellence. When you operate with clarity, everything that doesn't align becomes noise. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop chasing validation. You begin to move with a sense of internal certainty that silences doubt. The outside world loses its grip on you because your inner world becomes grounded in purpose. You no longer rely on motivation to carry you. You rely on your mission. And that mission isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you decide to live, every day, through your habits, through your focus, through your refusal to break the promises you've made to your future self. The truth is, most people lose the battle long before life challenges them. They lose it in the small moments, when they hit snooze, when they avoid the hard task, when they choose ease over effort. It's not a single failure that derails them. It's the repeated compromise. The slow erosion of self-trust, that's what keeps them stuck. But that's not your path, because you know that every small decision either strengthens or weakens your identity. And if you want to become unstoppable, you have to protect your identity like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your identity drives your choices. Your choices drive your outcomes. And your outcomes build your reality. This is why discipline is your freedom. Not a restriction, not a burden, but a tool. A tool that keeps you aligned with who you're becoming, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because in those moments, you separate yourself from the crowd. While others follow feelings, you follow principles. While others get distracted, you stay locked in. That's how you build something real, something unshakable. It's not about intensity for a day, it's about consistency for a lifetime. That's what creates the edge. That's what puts you in the top 1%, not by chance, but by choice. You were not built for average, you were built for impact. But impact requires depth, it requires solitude. It requires going to places within yourself most people avoid. Not to escape, but to evolve. You have to be willing to sit with your fear, your doubt, your weakness, and choose progress anyway. That's strength, that's leadership, that's how you win. Not just externally, but internally. Because winning isn't about applause. It's about alignment. It's about waking up and knowing you are exactly who you say you are. That's what creates peace. That's what builds confidence. Not talk, not image, integrity. So keep moving, keep building, keep becoming. Not because it's easy, but because you've outgrown easy. You've seen what settling costs. You've felt the weight of living below your potential. And you're done with it. Now you rise. Quietly, deliberately, unapologetically. Because once you've tasted what it feels like to be fully aligned with your purpose, nothing else satisfies. And from this moment on, you carry that standard into everything you do. Because this is no longer just about achieving more. It's about becoming more. Most people never find out what they're truly capable of, not because they lack the potential, but because they fear the discomfort required to unlock it. They stop the moment it gets hard. The moment it stops being exciting. The moment results don't show up fast enough. But mastery doesn't reward the impatient. It rewards the relentless, the ones who stay committed long after the feeling fades, the ones who understand that growth isn't a straight line. It's a series of quiet, unseen efforts stacked day after day. That's where greatness is built. In silence, in repetition, in moments no one claps for. When you shift your mindset from outcome to identity, everything changes. You stop asking if it's working and start asking if it's worth it. You start leading your days instead of surviving them. You take back control. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. The battles that used to break you start to build you. The chaos that once distracted you becomes fuel. You stop running from the weight and start training under it. Because now you understand. Pressure doesn't crush you. It carves you. It exposes weakness, yes, but only so you can replace it with strength. You're not here to be entertained. You're here to evolve. You're not here to impress. You're here to execute. The only validation that matters is the one that comes from knowing you didn't quit on yourself. That's real power, not how loud you are, not how many people notice you, but how consistent you are when no one is watching. How disciplined you are when the path feels lonely. How deeply you believe in your future, even when everything around you says stop. Because belief isn't just a feeling, it's a responsibility. And if you want others to believe in you, you must first show them what belief looks like in motion. The moment you stop needing permission is the moment you start accessing real freedom. You don't need to be understood. You need to be consistent. You don't need comfort. You need direction. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You need to prove it to yourself. Every time you take action despite fear, you're teaching your mind who's in control. Every time you follow through, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. And eventually, those votes build something unshakable. A mindset that doesn't fold under pressure. A confidence that doesn't require praise. A life that reflects your standards, not your excuses. You don't rise by chance. You rise because you refuse to stay where you are. You rise because the pain of staying stuck finally became louder than the fear of changing. That's the moment it all shifts. When you stop waiting for the perfect time and start becoming the person who makes now the perfect time. This is your edge. This is your advantage. This is the mindset that separates you from the 90%. Not talent, not luck, just the decision to rise again and again and again. Your breakthrough begins the moment you stop negotiating with your limits. As long as you keep making space for excuses, you'll never make room for excellence. Excellence demands full ownership. No blaming, no waiting, no hoping. Just decisions followed by disciplined action. Most people shrink themselves to fit inside the comfort zone they've built. But the comfort zone doesn't protect you. It traps you. It convinces you that average is safe, that someday is real, that growth can wait. But it can't. Because every day you delay your evolution, you fall further into patterns that were never meant to define you. You weren't made to live on autopilot. You weren't built for surface-level thinking. You were designed to stretch, to expand, to lead yourself forward, no matter what. But leadership isn't about control. It's about commitment. The commitment to act with integrity when no one's watching. The commitment to push when no one's clapping. The commitment to raise your standards so high that even your lowest day looks like someone else's peak. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's what happens when you choose responsibility over reaction. When you choose intentionality over impulse. That's the difference between those who drift and those who dominate. The strongest version of you is already inside. You just haven't brought it out consistently. And it's not because you can't. It's because your current identity is still attached to your past. But the past has no power unless you feed it. It's not your identity. It's your instruction. It's the lesson that taught you what not to repeat. The moment you stop replaying it and start rebuilding from it, everything begins to shift. You start stepping into the person you've always been capable of being. Not by force, but by alignment. Not with perfection, but with purpose. You won't reach your next level by doing what got you here. You reach it by becoming someone who demands more from themselves than the world expects. You raise your internal ceiling. You stop asking for shortcuts and start earning your strength through repetition, resilience, and relentless focus. You embrace friction, not because you love pain, but because you love progress more. Because you understand that the price of greatness is discomfort. And you're willing to pay it in full, every single day, without needing applause, approval, or permission. Nothing changes until you decide to stop entertaining average. Until you get tired of almost starting, almost committing, almost becoming. When almost is no longer enough, clarity is born. And that clarity turns into courage. Courage to make decisions without guarantees. Courage to walk alone when the crowd hesitates. Courage to fail forward until you finally break through. That kind of mindset doesn't just separate you from the rest. It transforms you into someone who no longer fears difficulty. Someone who sees pressure as proof that they're on the right path. Because you're no longer here to be like most people. You're here to become the rare few who rise without limits. When you start showing up with consistency, the world around you begins to shift. Not because it changes, but because you do. Your energy changes. Your standards change. Your boundaries sharpen. You start to filter your choices through a higher lens, one built not on comfort but on conviction. That's when momentum builds. Not from motivation, but from the quiet power of repetition. When you show up for your goals, even when it's hard, even when it's thankless, you create a level of internal certainty that no external challenge can shake. You begin to move differently. You begin to think with precision. You begin to trust yourself deeply, and that trust becomes everything. When you trust yourself, you don't need validation. You don't seek shortcuts. You don't chase approval. You create it from within. That inner foundation, built from discipline and resilience, becomes your advantage. Because while most people wait to feel ready, you decide to act. You don't need more time. You need more courage. Courage to follow through. Courage to get uncomfortable. Courage to let go of your old self so you can fully step into who you were always meant to be. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't time, it's alignment. When your actions finally match your ambitions, progress becomes inevitable. It might not be fast, it might not be flashy, but it will be real. And real change lasts. That's why slow, consistent growth will always beat bursts of random intensity. Because consistency rewires you. It shapes your identity. It builds evidence. Every choice you make is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. So if you want to outsmart 90% of people, don't just think differently. Live differently. Choose discipline when others choose distraction. Choose effort when others choose ease. Choose the long game when others crave quick wins. Your greatest edge is your ability to delay gratification, to say no when it's hard, to stay focused when it's tempting to quit. Every time you delay short-term pleasure in favor of long-term growth, you sharpen your mind, you strengthen your will, you raise your standards. And that standard is what separates you. Not talent, not intelligence, standards. Because your life will always rise or fall to meet the level of what you consistently tolerate. Raise that level. Refuse to lower yourself to match your past. Refuse to shrink just to fit in. Refuse to betray your potential for momentary relief. That kind of discipline might not be popular, but it's powerful. It's what allows you to walk with peace, even in chaos. To lead yourself when others get lost. To stand firm when others fold. And that strength isn't given, it's built. Day by day. Choice by choice. This is how you win, not with noise, not with hype, but with quiet, focused, unshakable action. The kind that doesn't need to be seen because the results will speak for themselves. Every day, you are training your mind, either to shrink in the face of pressure or to expand through it. The world won't hand you clarity. You create it by cutting through the noise. The more noise you silence, the more your purpose becomes sharp. You stop chasing things that drain you and start choosing things that build you. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. This is where your edge is forged, not in the big moments, but in the small ones where nobody is watching. When you choose to push, when it would be easier to pause. When you choose truth, when it would be easier to escape. That choice becomes your armor. Because life won't always be kind, it won't always reward you immediately, but it will test you. It will ask if you're serious. It will place obstacles in your path, not to break you, but to reveal who you are when things aren't easy. That's when your training shows. That's when your standards carry you. Not the words you say, but the actions you take when comfort has been stripped away. Most people fold under that pressure. They call it unfair, but the few who rise see it differently. They don't ask why me, they ask what now, and then they move. Because movement is power. Forward motion, no matter how small, creates momentum. You start seeing yourself differently. You begin to believe, not because someone told you, but because your actions prove it. Confidence isn't given. It's built. It's built in repetition. Built when you follow through again and again, especially when doubt creeps in. Especially when fear whispers, you're not ready. You don't argue with fear, you outwork it. You meet it head on, and show it that it no longer runs your life. You take your power back by choosing progress over perfection. That's the secret to separating yourself. Not talent, not background, but consistency in the hard moments. Effort when motivation is gone. Discipline when nobody claps. You don't just wait for the right mindset. You manufacture it through action. Through choosing values over impulses. Through honoring the future you're building more than the temporary relief you crave right now. That's how you build a mind that's unshakable. A mind that can sit with discomfort and still act with clarity. A mind that doesn't flinch in chaos because it's been tested by discipline. This isn't about being extreme. It's about being intentional. Every decision either sharpens you or dulls you. And the ones who rise are the ones who understand that excellence is not a mood. It's a muscle. You train it every day by doing what most avoid. That's how you outlast them. That's how you outthink them. That's how you quietly rise past 90% of people. Not by wishing, but by working. Not by shouting, but by showing. You don't need to be louder. You just need to be clearer. Clear in who you are, clear in what you do, and clear in what you will no longer accept. The moment you decide to stop negotiating with your excuses, everything changes. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they give their excuses authority. They let comfort speak louder than purpose. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect feeling, the perfect plan. But none of those things exist. Progress begins the moment you decide that your future deserves more than your fear. It begins when you stop entertaining thoughts that shrink your potential and start making choices that stretch your limits. That's how growth works. It's never comfortable, but it's always worth it. Discomfort is not the enemy. It's the compass. It tells you where you need to go, not where it's easiest to stay. The mind loves safety. It craves certainty. But greatness doesn't grow in certainty. It grows in risk, in effort, in doing the things others won't. If you only do what's familiar, you'll never discover what's possible. You'll keep recycling the same habits, living in the same loop, mistaking routine for progress. But when you step out, when you do the hard thing on purpose, your mind expands. You become someone who acts despite fear, who moves even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. That's when you unlock a deeper kind of confidence, one rooted in self-respect. Respect is earned by action. You can't fake it. You can't buy it. You build it through the discipline of showing up when it's inconvenient. You strengthen it when you take full responsibility for your path. No more blaming. No more waiting. No more hoping someone else will come fix what you keep avoiding. This is your life, your mind, your choices. And every time you choose growth over escape, you train yourself to lead instead of follow, to act instead of complain, to rise instead of retreat. The people who win aren't the ones who feel fearless. They're the ones who act anyway. They feel the fear, acknowledge it, but don't obey it. They've learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be ruled by it. And that's what separates them. Not luck, not ease, but the willingness to do hard things over and over until hard becomes normal, until challenge becomes fuel, until pressure becomes the place where they feel most alive. They train their minds to turn struggle into strength. That's not a trait, they built it, and so can you. You outsmart the masses not by being better, but by being more committed, more consistent, more focused. While most people seek comfort, you train for clarity. While they give in to distraction, you double down on direction. You're not here to be average, you're here to rise. And every time you act with discipline, every time you refuse to lower your standards, you separate yourself, not from them, but from the weaker version of yourself you used to be. This is your edge, this is your power, and it's yours the moment you stop hesitating and start deciding who you truly are. Every time you choose progress over comfort, you raise your internal standard. You train your brain to expect more from itself, not in a way that burns you out, but in a way that wakes you up. Most people are asleep at the wheel of their own life. They go through the motions. They repeat yesterday because it's familiar. They talk about change, but their actions are built on hesitation. That's why they stay stuck. That's why they watch instead of build. But not you. You're not here to repeat the old version of yourself. You're here to evolve beyond it. You do that by becoming conscious of every small decision, because it's the smallest choices, made consistently, that shape who you become. You already know what the easy path feels like. It feels safe, comfortable, unchallenged, and slowly it erodes your belief in yourself. But the hard path, the intentional one, forges something else. It strengthens your character. It rewires how you think. You begin to crave growth more than comfort, action more than excuses, impact more than applause. And once that shift happens, you stop asking for signs. You become the signal. You stop asking what if, and you start saying let's see. That shift begins with one simple realization. You are not a product of your environment. You are a product of your standards. You can be in a place that lacks direction and still choose to be disciplined. You can be surrounded by people who settle and still choose to rise. You can be underestimated, misunderstood, ignored, and still move like you were born for something more. Because you were. You were not built to conform. You were built to grow. You were built to lead your mind, not follow your moods. To train your habits, not bow to your impulses. And when you own that fully, you become dangerous, not in the destructive sense, but in the focused, unshakable sense. Because now, you can't be manipulated by noise. You're not easily distracted. You're not pulled off course every time something gets hard. You're grounded. You're disciplined. You know what you want, and you're willing to pay the price for it. And that's rare. That's what makes you powerful, in a world that rewards distraction. You become the kind of person who others look at and wonder how you do it. But it's not magic. It's not luck. It's clarity. It's commitment. It's mental conditioning. While others look for shortcuts, you build systems. While they try to fake confidence, you earn it. While they fear rejection, you lean into the challenge. You don't need validation when you have purpose. You don't need motivation when you have discipline. You lead yourself, not because it's easy, but because it's who you've decided to be. You rise not because of what the world gives you, but because of what you choose to demand from yourself. That's how you stay sharp. That's how you stay free. That's how you outgrow the limits most never question.